fatal heart impacts, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose. Pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet out. Get ready for defeat now.
The last thing I remember is just saying goodbye. I don't understand it. Where I am. Where this is. Is this heaven? Is this hell? I don't know. But it doesn't make any sense. I died, right? That being what our friend here does say, as he is currently laying in a small bed. Now, our friend here is the reincarnation of the first user, the baby named Izuku Midoriya. Now, Inko, she does get to see her baby. Meanwhile, the first user is sort of confused about everything. What is this? This woman? Am I... It can't be. Now, the first user, he's confused as to where he is, what's going on. Slowly coming to the realization that he's alive again. Could this be another addition to his quirk? Another one? Did I have two? It can't be possible. Now, with that being said, Izuku, or the first user, he will slowly begin to forget as he begins to grow up. Meanwhile, we will have him up at the age of 4, young Izuku. His personality beginning to form. Midoriya wants to be just like All Might, just like the #1 hero, just like the greatest pro ever. But he wants to do something. What does he want to do? Now, Midoriya is very unsure. He knows that he wants to be powerful and strong, and that he needs to stop a villain. That's what heroes do, they stop villains. Or, no, that's not right. Wait a minute. What's... all for... Am I remembering that book? The Three Musketeers? All for one and one for all, Midoriya says, kind of confused. Now, Inko, she does see her son sometimes get confused about things. He goes to say one thing, then something else will just pop out of his mouth. Is he okay? Now, over time, this slowly began to disappear. It still does pop up sometimes, but it is not fully gone. And we will cut to Midoriya at the Quirk doctor. He is given a quirk diagnosis. And, surprise, surprise, young man, you have a quirk. In fact, the doctor says, walking over to a drawer and pulling out an object. It looks like a small metal case. Before walking over and sitting back down, asking the young boy if he can try and do this. The man flipping it open before clicking down on the sparker, lighting a lighter. Izuku, confused, bringing up his hand and trying to snap his fingers. As soon as Midoriya does snap his fingers, he actually does have a flame produced from his hand. It is small, but it is still there. and you can clearly see that Midoriya's quirk is fire, similar to his father's. That's interesting. What is Doctor? Well, your son, his quirk is different from his father's, but I believe he may still be able to use the fire breath. What do you mean? Well, typically with fire breath users, or a fire breathing quirk, there are trace amounts of propane and other gases that will come out of your mouth whenever you breathe out. It is a certain mutation that you will find in somebody's lungs. But upon some of the tests we've ran, we believe that your son might have these. Now, along with that, your son, he does also seem to possess the ability to use it in both of his hands. Is that abnormal? No. Actually, it's a fairly useful quirk. If he can't use both of his hands in a fight, he can use his mouth. It might be very useful one day. In fact, I'd say, young man, you can be a strong hero. Hero. That's right, Midoriya is thinking. He wants to be a hero. He needs to save people. He needs to find something. Now, with that, Midoriya, he does go to school the next day. Many different people showing off their quirks. Bakugou has already showed off his explosion abilities. And Midoriya does mention today that he does have a quirk. Really, Izuku? Well, everybody step back, step back. Do you mind showing us your quirk? If it is just like your father's, then we will need to be careful. Actually, I think we should do this outside. No, it's okay, I got it, Midoriya says. Midoriya brings up his hands and trying to create fire. That does not work. He tries to focus. Then he tries snapping his fingers. Nothing happens. Midoriya a bit confused, taking in a deep breath before letting out a sigh. As soon as he lets out that sigh, some fire does spark from his mouth and get let out. Midoriya confused as he brings his hands up to cover his mouth, before pulling them away to reveal flames. Huh? What was that? Is that a trick? Is that how he uses his quirk? Midoriya, kind of shocked. What the heck? Why did that happen? That's annoying. Bakugou going on to state that his quirk isn't that impressive. Besides, his quirk is better, explosions are better. Now, with that, Bakugou tries to announce this. Meanwhile, the teacher, she basically explains to Bakugou that all quirks are very good, and that they just need to be careful with how they use them. Now, with that being said, Midoriya and Bakugou do actually meet back up at recess. Whenever there was a kid being bullied by him, Bakugou, he was having fun, showing off his quirk and basically calling this person weak. However, you do have Midoriya, he does step in and bring his hands to the fight. I'm not going to let you do that, Bakugou. Oh, really? So what's a weakling like you going to do with your quirk? Bakugou says. Midoriya pulling back his hand before at least throwing it out forwards. Bakugou being surprised when an actual fireball gets sent out flying towards his feet, before he does take a step backwards and falls over. Bakugou's henchman staring at Midoriya. As Midoriya does one thing. He actually does focus a little bit, bringing up his other hand and lighting on fire. Then watching as Midoriya, he just brings his hands up, telling Bakugou to come at him. He's gonna defend everyone. No one's gonna get hurt. Now, Bakugou does get a bit annoyed, deciding to try and rush Midoriya and hit him with an explosion. Now, that does not work out very well. As soon as Midoriya and Bakugou actually do go running at each other, Bakugou tries to throw out his hand and hit an explosion, throwing out his right as Midoriya actually does try to move to his right. Midoriya being able to get out of the way before trying to grab Bakugou by his arm. Now, as soon as Midoriya grabs Bakugou, with his hands covered in fire, an explosion can be heard. Midoriya being sent flying in through a classroom window, as Bakugou was sent flying into a chain link fence. Now, the teachers do actually call the police, thinking that this is a villain attack, along with calling ambulances. Now, Midoriya and Bakugou, they are at least okay. Midoriya and Bakugou, they did suffer a few scratches and, well, injuries, mainly cuts and bruises. Midoriya having to have glass pulled out of his arms, and at least some pieces out of his back. Well, Bakugou, he did have to get he had to get some stitches on his back whenever he had himself forced into a metal pole. And the chain link fence, as soon as it did jump backwards, it forced itself forwards as if it was basically shot at his back. Now, along with that, he did have to get his arm treated for fire burns. The teachers, they were a bit angry, but the doctors did basically explain. Bakugou's quirk, he literally sweats nitroglycerin. The fact that this incident did not happen sooner than later is good. Yes, it is bad in the fact that these two young boys were injured, but if these boys, their quirks were at full maturity, it is unknown as to how big that blast could have been. Especially with the fact that, their quirks are so dangerous against each other, suggesting to keep them apart is not a bad idea. Now, within the next week, at recess, Midoriya and Bakugou, they are both sitting in class. Neither one is allowed to go outside and play. And Bakugou does actually bring up something good. You know, I was thinking about what happened last week. What is it, Bakugou? Well, you grabbed me and we exploded, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, that was actually pretty cool, right? Well, a little bit. Though, I guess I'm gonna get a few scars from this. Midoriya holding up one of his arms, covered in bandages. Tuh, you think that's something? You should see my back. I'm probably gonna look like I got, what? Hit by a brick wall? I don't know. Bakugou standing up before turning around, pulling up his shirt and asking Midoriya, what does it look like? Midoriya seeing what looks like still a bright red mark. Now, Midoriya does tell Bakugou that that looks like it might heal right. Oh man, I don't get his cool scar. Well, at least this thing might scar up. Him holding up his bandaged arm. Well, I mean, come on. Besides, I did have a bit of a theory. What is it? Well, you sweat nitroglycerin? Isn't that right? Something similar. My mom tried explaining it to me, but I don't listen. It's boring. Well, I mean, kind of, but it's also kind of interesting. If you were to make something to hold all that stuff that you sweat, then Well, I think that you could store it up. Hmm? Store it up? That sounds weird. Well, I mean, kind of, but hmm. Midoriya, he actually does have his mind go back to a villain battle, one that he is unaware of, or at least has not experienced. But at the same time, he has a large explosion going off, him being sent flying away as another person is sent flying. And both of them do get back up, before screaming out the name Shigaraki. Now, Midoriya, he is kind of confused. He's zoned out, before zoning back in. Um, sorry. Uh, you could try, I think, grenades? Hmm? What are you talking about? Well, I mean, it's like, what is the right word for it? Midoriya, he turns onto his desk, and begins to try and draw something. It's a very rough drawing, but you can at least see what he's trying to go for with it. A badly drawn circle, and what looks to be something poking out of it, and a pin, or at least another circle, saying that it's like a baseball. Fill it with your sweat and get something inside that whenever you pull it, it would cause a spark. But it'll just blow up in my hand. And that'd be a lot worse than what happened today. No, Bakugou, you get it delayed or something. Delayed? How does that work? I don't know. Then why are you drawing this stuff? I don't know. Now, these two do begin to argue. Meanwhile, Midoriya, he does have a few ideas for his own quirk. Midoriya wants to get gloves that would help, at least try and focus his firebending, or his fire quirk, along with at least possibly a mask to help direct his breath, or possibly at least contain the weird chemicals he breathes out. Now, Midoriya does actually head home. And he does actually begin to ask his mom about this. He wants to learn more about hero things. What do you mean, Izuku? Well, Mom, I want to learn a bit more about, well, what is it? I think it's called a support item. A support item? Why in the world do you want to learn about those? Oh, well, because of my quirk. With my quirk being somewhat like Dad's and the weird things I breathe out, or chemicals, I wanted to see if I can find a way to store them. And possibly use them in a battle? Izuku, I think it's far too soon for you to be thinking about things like that. Besides, sorry to say, young man, but you do still need to learn to control your quirk before you think about fighting with it. But Mom, I want to learn a bit more about this stuff. Young man, that is no. And besides, stop using your quirk with your clothing. We can't afford fireproof stuff for you yet, okay? But Mom, please. Listen, if I can at least get gloves or something like that, then I can help with my quirk. You're right, if we do get fireproof gloves, we can at least stop you from lighting your hands. That's not what I meant. You're going in the complete opposite direction I'm trying to say. Besides, how else am I going to beat him if I'm not strong enough? Beat who, Izuku? The... the man. The bad man. Bad man? What are you talking about? A villain. The bad man. Midoriya says, not sure why he singled out somebody. bad man? Bad men? That's getting weird. Now, Inko does think that Midoriya, his little childhood imagination, it might be a bit odd. Or quite possibly he's making up an imaginary friend. But calling his friend the bad man? That's not very good. Now, with that being said, Inko decides that Midoriya, he can get gloves, but ultimately he might not wear them. Trying to talk with her son and explain to him to not use his quirk the way he has been, or at least not in school. Asking Midoriya if he can promise her not to. Midoriya tells her that that's gonna be a bit hard. Izuku, can you promise me that? Come on, Izuku. Mom, please. Just listen to me for once. Fine, if you don't want to promise me that, then I guess I'm not going to use the latest All Might action figure. But Mom! The two going back and forth. Midoriya, reluctantly making a promise. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed and have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys in the next part.